On January 31st, 1993, following Super Bowl 27, 18 million viewers witnessed the birth of a groundbreaking television series.
Excuse me, hi. This is Homicide.
Homicide, we work for God.
Homicide: Life on the Street began 2 years earlier when Academy Award-winning director Barry Levinson optioned the rights to Homicide: A Year on the Killing Streets. Reporter David Simons looked inside the homicide unit of the Baltimore Police Department. Levinson felt the book offered a chance to create a darker, more realistic police drama.
Let's talk about a homicide squad. What are they about? What are their personal lives are? What kind of problems they have? Not just solving crimes, because a lot of times they don't solve the crime. And that would be another element of what we wanted to explore. This is not every week we solve a crime and isn't life wonderful.
11-year-old girl is butchered. I'm expected to find the killer. I don't even have a desk!
Desk. Stay at your desk.
One of the first people he approached was writer Tom Fontana.
What Barry said to me at this meeting was, I want to do a cop show with no gun battles and no car chases. And I thought, well, that's impossible. I have to be involved in that.
First of all, you're not going to actually see the crime most of the time because they come after someone is dead. We would have to find our own way to create energy and tension.
I swear I will crack this sucker. I swear I will.
Levinson signed a 6-episode deal with NBC, giving him a rare amount of creative freedom, including total control of the casting, even though the dark tone of the material concerned the network.
The more we talked about it being about Baltimore, the reality of who dies, who is murdered in Baltimore, the more that they were like, I think got more and more terrified of the idea that we were going to do this very dark and troubling series. Basically, the network executives were like, well, is there going to be a murder every week? And I was like, well, yeah, it's called Homicide.
Nice trees, beautiful lawn. Now this is the place for a murder.
It is more about the living than the dead. The show is called Homicide. And all of these people are going to have to work to ultimately resolve something. But it's those who are working is where the interest lies.
Levinson and Fontana assembled what would come to be known as one of the strongest ensemble casts on television, aligning veteran actors like Ned Beatty and Yaphet Kotto alongside new faces, chosen to reflect real-life Baltimore detectives.
We wanted the show to represent Baltimore, and Baltimore is a brown town.
This is not a black thing, this is a blue thing. Blue.
Their choices were original, to say the least.
I was listening to Howard Stern and Belger was on. And for some reason I was like, I wonder how he would be as Detective Munch.
I hate women. Hate them.
The network would have liked us to have A, more women, and B, really, babes. But at the time that we started doing the show, there was only one female homicide detective in Baltimore.
And we got a homicide here or what?
I believed Melissa was a cop from the second she opened her mouth.
I'm gonna find that gun, and you, my friend, are going to jail.
I liked Andre, but it wasn't until he put on those suspenders that he really inhabited that character, and we watched him just possess it in a way that, you get lucky sometimes.
You're making a whole lot of stuff out of nothing. Did you say I'm nothing? You said I'm nothing? I'm nothing? I'm nothing! I'm nothing!
Levinson's vision was to make Homicide feel like a documentary, beginning with where it was shot.
Let's try to shoot it in Baltimore all the time. Let everything be real. Let it really feel like the streets of Baltimore, the place that it takes place. Not that it's a document about Baltimore, but let it have a sense of locale. There's an energy out there, because you're not just sitting on a sound stage, you're not in some kind of isolated thing. We are in Baltimore and we are on the streets, and we are very alive and robust in that respect.
Including one location none of us will ever forget.
We shot in the morgue the first 2 seasons, and then we actually ended up building a replica of the morgue on a stage, because the cast and the crew was so hated going there, so repulsed by going there. And we'd have to go and shoot like at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and they would have cleaned it all up and moved everything. But there was still the refrigerator where right on the other side of the door were dead bodies.
What's a lady like you doing in a place like this?
Looking for Mr. Right.
Levinson chose to shoot Super 16mm film, allowing him to use smaller cameras and crews, while also saving money. The mobility he gained allowed him to shoot entire episodes using handheld cameras.
What kind of palette can we come up with that will, be different in itself? So we decided to go shoot Super 16 and rather than 35. Let's do handheld instead of, putting it on sticks. Let's be rough and let the roughness show.
We're not going to have car chases, so the camera has to give us the kind of energy and adrenaline that you would normally in a regular cop show go, oh, let's get in the car and drive around, and that'll give that'll give us a little juice.
We would let the actors do the scene, and the camera would sort of follow or try to pick up on the action in the scene. When we would do a scene in a car, they jump in the car and the cameraman get in the back seat, and that would be it.
This freewheeling shooting process also allowed for the show's most radical innovation, the editing style known as jump cutting.
How to stage a scene, we do it here, and then when you do it, the next time you do it, you move everybody like, a few feet from where they were. So when you cut, they're somehow slightly off position, just a little bit or whatever, just to make the cut even jump more. Screen direction doesn't matter in here. That's the point. That's how this scene is going to be stronger, because we will jump screen direction and it'll kind of give us an extra emphasis. We'll even back up on a line and say it again.
I was drinking.
And little oddball things like that became part of what would be our style.
Fontana, meanwhile, guided the team of writers, which would later include author David Simon, to pull no punches in making the characters as realistic and troubled as possible.
Part of what we did was we took a page from Barry Levinson movies, Diner, where you have people having conversations.
1 million people died in the potato famine. Ireland is an island. An island, by definition, is surrounded by fish. 1 million people died because they didn't like fish.
It didn't have to be about the murder. It didn't have to be about the meaning of life. It could have been, about what restaurant was the best place to get crab cake.
NBC was so impressed by the pilot that they extended the initial order to 9 episodes. The show's 6th episode became one of the creators' proudest moments, an hour of television set entirely in the interrogation room known as the box.
When Barry and I were sitting on the set for the shooting of the pilot, and Barry was directing Andre and Kyle in the very first scene in the box, there was a moment between Andre and Kyle, and both Barry and I turned to each other and looked at each other.
I went, oh, this is really powerful. This is strong. These guys are so good, you can just literally put them in a room and do a whole hour, don't do anything else.
Tell me something. Did you ever love somebody, Risley? Did you ever love somebody?
She was never in my barn.
She was never in your barn.
Right.
Never? She worked for you, Risley.
You just told us she was there.
I just said never.
Which is?
Was it never or what?
She was there?
Right.
She was in the barn?
Right.
Yeah. She was there in the barn that night?
Right?
No. You just told us she was there!
That, I think, was the moment I thought, well, this show has real potential.
Homicide garnered critical buzz and awards, but ratings were a different matter, disappointing the network.
We never expected Homicide to be a top 10 show. It wasn't designed to be a top 10 show. Our thought was, we're going to make this really specific show, and the people who get it will get it, and other people will be watching, Nash Bridges or whatever.
In 1994, NBC renewed the show for only 4 episodes. In season 2, Homicide would go on to see more guest stars, more critical acclaim, and a more heated battle to stay on the air.
I think that the show succeeded doing what was its initial intention, and we did it on our own terms. Not only did we have our own show, which was true and honest to what we were making, but in time, it was so influential that, so much it had been borrowed in a way. So you go, well, then we had an impact, and we had a moment in terms of television that we kind of put down our own flag in a way.
That's the problem with his job. It's got nothing to do with life.
Homicide.